Well, hello, everybody. You can see that I'm sitting by myself. Jackson is sitting down in a semi somewhere in the middle of Texas.
I don't think we could. This is as far apart as we've ever been. I think doing the old podcast, you and I. And I feel like I'm in a whole different universe. On top of being a far distance from you, we're in uh, we're in eastern Texas on I-20, getting close to Louisiana, and the grass is like I don't know, probably 6 inches tall. Half the trees got leaves on them, and I'm sitting here. Chris is driving, and I'm sitting here going, "This is a little bit depressing in the springtime for us because I think we are. This is like mid-May Montana stuff. So I'm like, oh yeah, a few months down the road, we'll be seeing some of this action.
Yeah, looking at it now, it seems hopeless. We got quite we had quite a good storm this last weekend. So you're coming back to some white.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I got out ahead of that. I think I left to the airport. We just finished racing in Phoenix. Do you call it Phoenix or Phoenix?
Phoenix.
Phoenix. Man, we do a lot of enunciation and pronunciations on the show. I've realized we're kind of that might have to be a thing we just throw in on the regular. Phoenix. Phoenix.
I I've actually never heard it pronounced the way you were
Phoenix?
trying to get people.
Mountains. Okay, so it's mostly just me. I'm kind of I need to do Hooked on Phonics, I think. You remember that, Hooked on Phonics?
I remember Hooked on Phonics.
Yeah.
So I got a couple things I want to tell you about that's been going on, and then we'll probably spend the second half of the episode just talking about this race that you've been in down in Phoenix with
Yeah.
Junior
Sure. This is
Motorsports.
my first full race for sure. So I also have I had a listener question I've got too. You just slip that in there when you want, but I've got it here. It's a pretty good question. Something that we overlooked that we talk about. Weston and I talked a lot about.
Let's start it now. Let's do it now.
Okay, so it was asked. In fact, let me give me 1 second. I want to look up his name here because it's nice to give a little shout out to the nameage. Hold on, David Solomon. David Solomon wanted to know what a milk run is. Weston and I referred to a milk run several times.
I did.
In reference to hauling livestock.
I remember you guys calling that. Yep.
Yeah, and Rooster used that term too with all the hogs that he pick up. And I just totally went right over my head. I didn't realize that is something that people need to know what a milk run is. So the term milk run comes from, see, in the dairy world where they milk cows, they have a refrigerated tank on each dairy, and that dairy tank has to be emptied out about every other day. So a big dairy might have, half a semi-load of milk every other day. Smaller dairies, they're going to have, maybe a couple thousand pounds of milk every other day. But the milk trucks would have to go around and pick up milk from all these different dairies where they, probably 6-7 stops every morning to the various little rural dairies, and that would complete the full load. And they had to do a lot of stops. And then it's funny because on the other end, back in the day, they used to deliver milk, and you have to make, kind of like delivering newspapers, you have to make a bunch of stops and drop milk off. So milk has always been kind of related to several stops. So we call it a milk run when you have to pick up maybe, say, cattle in Lewistown, and you got to drive 50 miles and pick up cattle at another place, and then go down to Bozeman and pick up some more cattle, and then ended up in Billings. And this time of year, when the cattle start getting slower, we do more milk runs. They're very undesirable, like the hardcore haulers, like the guys higher up on the food chain. They do not do milk runs. So when we first started trucking, that's how we got our foot in the door. Was, hey, I got a load, but you have to make 5 or 6 stops. No veteran trucker in 1,000 years wants to do this load, but you guys are young and you're kind of dumb, so want to do the milk run? So we do the milk run.
And then our dad, Rooster, he stayed at the very bottom rungs his whole trucking life because every single week I don't, it had to have been 80-90% of the time you could consider his loads milk runs going to South Dakota.
Yeah.
I mean,
Best case scenario.
I
It
can
was
remember,
2 stops.
I can remember he would always load out Tuesday night, but I can remember Monday nights he'd go up to Cut Bank, stay the night, pick up hogs up north in Cut Bank, which is 2.5 hour drive. It's in a semi from
Yeah.
here. Come down, load the hogs that he'd collected here in Fairfield. Then he'd drive up the road an hour, and he'd meet 2 or 3 trailers on the road where they'd back up a horse trailer or a grain truck to his semi and throw something in, and then he'd stop at a Hooterite colony, halfway to Billings and load. And then, about halfway to South Dakota, he's finally got a full load of hogs every single week. Every single week.
Yeah. Yep. So listeners now can understand why a milk run to us was like, well, what's the big deal? I didn't know there was anything else. Like, I thought everybody did this. Little did we know that that was not the case for most cattle haulers. But for us, and then we had goats and sheep and cattle. The only thing we never hauled on those loads was pigs. We didn't mix any pigs in with them. That would have put us right on the low rung par with Rooster.
Well, that's going to lead me into another listener question myself that we got on Instagram.
Oh, right on.
So, since you're name dropping, I guess I better look up the name here.
Yeah, better look it up.
Wasn't prepared.
Always feels good to get a shot,
So this is from William. Oh man, I'm gonna hammer this last name. I think it's Kaziar. William Kaziar.
Okay.
William, if I butchered that too badly, please correct me. He thinks it'd be interesting to have a whole episode on networking, which I don't disagree.
On what was it you said?
Networking.
Oh.
He said Jax has networked his way from hauling loads from farmers to hauling loads for Heavy D to hauling for Junior's race team. He said, I'm young and would like to hear your advice on networking your way to success as it seems Jax is doing. And my answer was, I think his biggest secret is he's just a freaking goofball.
That is what leads to it.
I'm going to say that term goofball can encompass a lot of things, from just being an emotional goofball to doing literally goofy loads, which you're describing, where you're making multiple stops, throwing sheep, throwing goats, throwing whatever on. They used to call it paying your dues, and a lot of people don't think that is a thing that should be done anymore. But when you're paying your dues, I know when you and Weston were talking, listening to those episodes, you were bottom of the barreling a lot of stuff, from auctioneering to hauling livestock. Yeah. But when you're doing that, it sure puts you around a lot of people where you can start seeing the lay of the land, and you can start kind of seeing who you might need to know.
Yeah, well, and it all pyramids too. Like, for example, when you do start at the bottom of the rung, as far as getting to know the locals, like that's what we started doing, was hauling cattle for the local, hauling hay for the local. That will feed you for years to come. Even now, I mean, it's been years since those days that we hauled local cattle and local hay, and I still get calls and texts and messages from local people wondering, hey, do you know where there's any hay for sale? Do you know it's whereas if I just come in on the top rung and I signed on with some big company that was hauling hay and I was just pulling loads and going where I was told, you wouldn't have that pyramid foundation underneath you, that good strong bedrock where you just don't get to know the people. And that's part of the networking deal and I didn't realize it at the time that 5, 6, 7 years later, these people would still call saying, hey, you hauled some hay for me back in 2015. Do you know where there's any more hay? And should you need some loads, it just kind of is this gift that keeps on giving if you start at the bottom.
So William, we're basically what we're doing, William, is we're acknowledging that we got that, and I think we do need to spend more time on that, and this is probably something that we need to spend. Jackson and I need to spend a little bit of time actually organizing. But when you were talking, Jackson, about these milk runs, when you started way down there doing those, I think that's a lot of basis of where you began, if you want to call it networking. But anyway, I just want to touch on that.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad he brought that up. So we need to put a little time on networking, and we need to put some time into. We were going to talk fuel mileage this episode, but I ended up being on the road here and not the greatest environment considering the truck that we're in and the loads that we're hauling. Probably not a good time to talk about fuel mileage.
Are you so speaking of fuel mileage, what's Chris got the speedometer at?
Am I allowed to say I can tell your speeds because we're in Texas and the speed limit's high. Yeah, 80-mile-an-hour speed limit across Texas out here. So we're more concerned with getting home by Monday morning so they can start working on these race cars than we are saving the money. It just racing and fuel savings just don't really go hand in hand.
Do you, when you're sitting in that truck and seeing that speedometer almost pegged out, does it make your skin itch? I mean, do you get hives? Do you have any stress? Do you have any allergic reaction to that?
It does. In fact, Chris keeps the curtain open here next to me, and he reaches around and puts a hand on my shoulder from the bunk and just kind of pats my shoulder and gives me like a reassuring, it's okay to hammer down tonight. Just keep after it. And then once he notices I'm keeping the speed up and everything's kind of how he prefers it, then the hand slowly slides down and disappears and is gone, and he goes to bed. But yeah, it's about 130 miles of some reassurance there from the old Carolina Cruiser.
Oh man, has he ever been in a truck going as slow as you tried to do when you first started there?
No, he has not. Yeah. No, he has not gone he's not ever gone under the speed limit since he hired on with NASCAR. Actually, long before that. He was telling me some stories about when he used to haul out of California, and I'll probably better let him divulge the details of those stories. But Chris is the Carolina Cruiser now. That's his name because he cruises. I'm getting an education, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, let's come back to that NASCAR in a little bit.
For sure.
Hey, last week we were talking a little bit about me back in the jail and that girl who had gotten that minimum mandatory sentence.
Yeah.
All right. So 2 days ago, I was back in doing dental work in there, and that same girl had a fentanyl overdose in the week since I'd been in there.
Oh, was it fatal?
Almost.
Oh man.
Got to her just in the nick of time and pulled her out of it. But
fentanyl overdose in the jail.
I think it'd be easier for you to find fentanyl in the jail than it would be on the streets. You would not believe the amount of drugs that come into the jails and prisons.
Oh man. Was it the same way up in Shelby? Did you find it?
Yeah, a lot up in Shelby. Up in Shelby, those drugs all come in from I'm not gonna say all, but the vast majority come in from staff.
Really?
They have such an extremely high turnover rate at that prison in Shelby. You just see some people that are going through the training, and you wonder how many days removed they are from being on the other side of the door.
They liked it so much they got a job there.
Oh, and yeah. And so, they a lot of manipulation. Those inmates have nothing to do all day except figure out ways to manipulate and get their way in and get someone hooked. But yeah, a lot of drugs come in with staff at the prison.
Wow.
The jail, the county jail, is different. Less turnover. It seems because it's the sheriff's department that runs it. So a lot of all these guys are like on the sheriff's department, and it seems like there's a little bit more loyalty or commitment to the job, through the sheriff's department versus just being a staff at a private prison. So it seems like a lot of the drugs that come into the jail are actually brought in by people coming in, that have been arrested coming in. They have now, they have all the body cavity searches, but they have a full body scanner where they can scan and see if there's anything being brought inside of a person. We'll just leave it at that.
That's where I was going next. Was how do they mule it in? Because Hollywood, not Hollywood the truck. We have a trucker out here named Hollywood. Not Hollywood the trucker, but Hollywood the movies. They portrayed drug muling as rectal situation.
Yeah. In fact, there's a very acute name for that. They call it a prison purse.
Really?
Ask Chris if he's ever heard that term.
Chris, do you know what a prison purse is? A prison purse. Yeah. He's getting the giggles.
You guys can talk about it off the air.
It's a very small suitcase.
Yeah,
it's kind of a cylinder shape.
But yeah, that seems to be where most of the, because a lot of these people, you get arrested out on the street, and you go from the side of the road. Literally, it could be you're pulled out of your car, put into the back of the sheriff's vehicle, and then you're out at the jail, and they're stripping you down and whatnot. So there's a lot of stuff that they pull off of people simply because they're coming right from an arrest into the jail. Where in the prison, they've been in county jail, they've been through court, they've been through sentencing, they've been in jail for a long time before they actually go to prison. So a lot of this stuff is brought in. Just speaking of the things that are smuggled. When we had our training course a couple weeks ago, they were showing pictures of an inmate had built a tattoo gun, and he was getting his cell searched, and he decided to tuck that thing into his prison purse with a string attached.
Oh no!
And so once the searching was done, he went to retrieve his tattoo gun, and the string broke. So he. After a little bit, got pretty uncomfortable, so he requested a visit to the hospital to retrieve his tattoo gun. So in the course,
string broke.
In the course, they said, what you can imagine what the lesson was that he learned. And I said, yeah, use a stronger string next time.
I think when you said a string, my mind immediately went to the old the stairs that pull down from the attic.
Yeah,
there's like a string that hangs out of the ceiling.
Yeah,
and you pull it down, and the stairs come down. That's where my mind kind of went with the visual.
Yeah, but yeah, crazy though. That girl, that same girl with that minimum mandatory, she had a little overdose episode there. Part of it too is they've been off of the streets for a while, so their tolerance for the amount of drug intake that they can handle without an overdose, their tolerance goes down. So
what used to work for them,
kills them now. Yeah.
I read an article that I think they said last year we captured enough fentanyl to kill the entire United States. Did you hear that stat?
I don't know if I've heard that exact one, but I mean, the amount of fentanyl that you need to overdose is hardly anything. It is so potent.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how much they would have to capture to kill everyone. But I don't think it's much.
Not a lot. No, I don't think it is. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I had another something else come to mind when we were in the jail this last week, and I wish I could remember the circumstances that brought this to my mind, but it was kind of a funny story. When I was working at the prison in Shelby, we had a nurse that was working in there, and she was talking about an experience she had before coming to the prison. She was working at a county jail in Cut Bank. I think it was Cut Bank, a county jail in one of the counties around here anyway. And she had a seizure where she actually led to her having to have CPR done on her. And so she had this seizure, she was on the ground and they ended up having to do CPR on her. And she told me, she said it was crazy because everything's filmed there. So she was able to go back and watch on film.
Oh man.
Her having the seizure, having, everyone come do CPR, whatever. She said that the biggest thing about watching it though, she said there was an officer in this jail that she was working at that she said was real good looking. She had a big crush on him. And so when she was on the ground and he was the one that responded to her, and she said she quickly realized that this was the guy that was going to be doing CPR on her, the guy she had a crush on. And so she said watching this video, she actually started to have a little bit of sexual excitement watching this video that this guy that she had a crush on was actually going to be doing mouth to mouth on her. And so she's getting excited watching this video. She said this officer's just about to lay lips on her when another officer who was in charge, lieutenant or captain or something, who she said was extremely obese and had a really sloppy tobacco chewing issue, came running over and pushed the good-looking officer out of the way, stuck his finger into his lip and pulled his dip out and threw it on the floor and immediately started doing mouth-to-mouth on her.
No way.
Oh, man. She said that her excitement went from being so excited to disgust in like just a blink. It was just so funny her telling the story where she literally, if they're not doing something, she's going to die. They intervened to save her life. And she's sitting here watching her literally, this is the time to use the word literally watching her life being saved, that if this isn't done, she's going to die. And she's just excited this good-looking guy's going to do mouth-to-mouth and just a mouthful of tobacco juice comes flying over.
Oh, I know. The visual is so clear because you get some of these truckers out here get a little sloppy with that. You got tobacco kind of sprinkling throughout all the gum lines and the teeth. I can just see him just taking a finger swipe, clear that lip out, perform the CPR.
That's pretty good, huh?
Oh, you remember on The Sandlot when Squints?
Oh yeah.
Wendy Peppercorn, oiling and tanning, and oiling and tanning. I can't take it anymore. So he jumps off the deep end. Oh man, dude, that's hilarious.
Yeah. I'm just kind of got a collection of little knicky-knack stuff here. I wanted to.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good time for it since we're just rolling
down the road, telling some stories. Got some stories you can tell Chris to keep him awake, huh?
Yep. Yeah, I've got two. I could teach him about the purse and tell him a story about the nurse.
Yeah. The other one, something I don't remember what sparked this with you and Weston, but the feedlot, we call it the feedlot. That's where Dad collected hogs every week. Was the feedlot, and it was a feedlot, but it wasn't used really anymore as a feedlot.
Yeah, back in the 70s, I think they fed a lot in the 70s, and then kind of transferred it into more of a buying station.
So there was infrastructure, as if it could be a feedlot, pens and corrals and livestock scale, alleys, but it was. Anyway, we called it the feedlot, and there was an old trailer, a trailer that you would live in, but it was an old trailer, and that was the office.
Yep.
For the feedlot there, and the trailer at the feedlot, the office, it kind of had over time became a little bit of a social gathering point for various
every Monday
various people. But one of the things that with the sociality of it, it developed that there was always some sort of a snack in there. And our
The snacks, they varied a lot over the
they
years.
varied a lot. They varied a lot. My earliest memories was cans of sardine and buttermilk. That was I. Then that was, and then the other was a non-alcoholic beer called Texas Light, and that's what our grandpa always had in the fridge. There was sardines, buttermilk, and Texas Light.
Grandpa Don had the weirdest
So,
palate.
so
Like his taste was like, what?
as little kids, yeah, all right. So all right, that's all there is
Yeah.
to eat over here: is sardines and Texas Light, which tasted like I don't even know what it tastes like dog urine. I don't know. I know it wasn't good, but it was better than buttermilk. Is when you're a kid, so you have a
Yeah,
choice.
oh, buttermilk. Nothing worse than buttermilk. Oh.
You can wash your sardines down with buttermilk or Texas.
Oh.
Anyway,
Oh.
well, our grandpa Don, he helped run a grocery store in Augusta, Montana, and in the candy snack area, they had these bulk boxes of candy, a lot of chocolates, chocolate covered nuts, chocolate raisins, caramel patties, with nuts, a huge variety. But
Yeah.
you buy them by the pound. You get your sack and scoop them in, and got to be that when this stuff got a little bit old, where they couldn't sell it in the grocery store anymore, it was brought over to the feedlot and put into the office where, even though it was discolored, whatever, you can still eat it just fine. And
Oh yeah, live on for weeks at the office, months even sometimes. That toffee bar things for months. Yeah.
oh yeah, well, my favorite that ever came in there was the caramel patties.
The caramel
Chocolate covered caramel patty with some nuts in there. And one thing about the feedlot, all the livestock during the summer, lots of flies.
Yeah, a lot of flies.
Flies go with livestock. And I remember sitting in the office one day there. We'd been out doing whatever, came in and grabbed a handful of caramel patties like I did about every, 30, 40 minutes for the previous, I don't know how many weeks. And I was sitting there eating, and for whatever reason, I'd never done it before. I took a bite out of this caramel patty and was chewing. I looked down where I'd taken the bite out of it, and it was moving.
Oh no. Oh no.
And so I didn't really know what I was seeing. I started looking. My caramel patty was full of maggots.
Oh no. The one you were eating?
The one I was eating. The one I just chewed up and swallowed. And I proceeded to investigate the rest of the caramel patties in my hand, and they were full of maggots, and so was the whole box. And I have no idea how long those caramel patties have been hatching fly eggs. I don't know how many weeks worth of maggots I had been eating in these caramel patties.
You had to have ate a bunch of them. Oh man.
Oh.
Man.
So I don't.
I will.
I wish I could remember what you and that made those canned sardines look a lot better.
That's funny you mentioned the sardines because that was kind of my early memories was the sardines. And so for good old time's sake, it was 2 summers ago when we bailed, we hauled all that straw to the ranch because of the drought. We fed all that straw to the cows.
Yeah.
We stopped at a little store and they had some sardines there for sale. And Weston and I, of course, this was just 2 years ago. Weston was home visiting and he was able to haul a bunch of the straw and help us get it moved. And we stopped at this little store, and what do they have in the corner of the top shelf? They got an old box of sardines. So I was like, oh, remember these at the feedlot? Weston I don't think he remembers the sardine days because that was a little before. I think they upped the game there in the later years with the snackage. But I was like, we got to get these. So we buy the sardines, and I look on the back, and I see that they've been outdated for months. But for some reason, I thought that was fine. I don't know why I don't know why I thought that would be okay.
Well, the reason is because all of the sardines that were at the feedlot were all the old outdated ones from the grocery store.
Okay. So
it's like everything that was over there.
Just ingrained into my youth that it's fine. The expiration dates don't really mean anything. There's no maggots in there. It doesn't really matter. So we get these sardines and we load it. So I did this YouTube episode on hauling all this straw. And the last load of straw that we hauled, we're kind of doing the outro for YouTube. And all right, thanks for following. And we're going to make it through the winter. And we decided to celebrate by eating sardines. And we cracked these sardines open. And Weston grabs one, I grab one, and Rooster grabbed one. And I got so food poisoned that night. It was like the most awful, horrible, just night of nonstop puking and just laying on the bathroom floor that I've ever had. Yeah. So something about the magic of youth. You can ingest that stuff and just power through it. But those days are passed me by, I'm afraid.
Yep, sardines, man.
Sardines. Oh. Yeah, and I never thought about the origin. I just knew they were there. You'd open that drawer and there was just sardines. Or open the fridge and there were sardines.
And it was sardines in spring water, sardines in mustard, sardines in ketchup.
Yeah.
Some in oil. But
yeah.
Yep, that was always a cupboard full of sardines.
Speaking of strange foods real quick, this is something that everyone might get a kick out of. All my life I have, for those of you that are listening, I have pretty much whatever Luke says, I will just do it. Like, he'd be like, just go do it, and I'll do it. Because I've always really looked up to Luke being the eldest, setting the trends for the rest of the siblings. So you had kind of this power. And usually, you didn't take advantage of it too bad with like, go get me this or go get me that, But one time, you told me about a peanut butter and pickle sandwich. You remember this at all?
Nope.
You'd come home from school and we're just having our afternoon snacks and you're like, you guys, you have to try a peanut butter and pickle sandwich. They're so good. And I think you had mentioned, I think you had mentioned that, I don't know why I remember this, but you said Carly Jesvold, one of your classmates, showed you this and it was just so good. And of course we were all young. We knew who all the high school kids were because of our small community. And I'm like, oh, she said it's good. Luke says it's good. I'm down. So you talked me into making a peanut butter and pickle sandwich, and I ate it. And somehow you talked me into thinking that it was good. And so I believed for a couple of years that those were good, and for a while that was actually something that was on my personal snack menu, was peanut butter and pickle sandwiches. But it was a total farce. And I had no idea, because you never told me, like, oh, hey, I was just teasing. Remember, like, that was like 6 years ago. I was teasing, man. Like, no, I just had to grow out of it on my own. I never learned the truth.
Well, it just goes to show you that if something doesn't taste good, it's all in your head. If you could choke that down for years.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh man. See, I thought you were gonna segue that into saying that that's actually a thing that you've learned with all these NASCAR truckers. They said Chris is a good cook there at the race.
I wonder if we could do this, because Chris is revered as like the guy at the track, and I witnessed it the other day. Everyone comes to eat whatever Chris has. Everyone comes. I wonder if he could talk people into thinking the same thing. Peanut butter and pickle, little sliders, just little bite-sized little sliders for the race crew. Peanut butter and pickle, baby.
You just get those sliced pickles, so each bite is just like one sliced pickle size.
Just a little dollop of some natural peanut butter on there.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could. I bet some of these guys could get on. I know a couple of these truckers we could talk into it for sure. The bar's pretty low.
Well, tell us the Phoenix story, man. What's been?
Yeah. Oh, so is a lot. Here's. I'm just gonna preface it with this, okay? So, if you're not a NASCAR fan, go to a NASCAR race live, and you will forever be a NASCAR fan. It's hard to explain, having never, all the guys that I'm with, I kind of felt silly because I'm all just, big wide eyes and everything's like, ooh, look at this. Oh, what's that? And these guys have been doing it week in and week out for years. So the majesty of race day is long past. It's more of a, we're here we're here to get down to business. We're going to try to win this race. We're going to pack up. We're going to get out of here. Move on to the next one. And so I'm kind of wandering around looking at this stuff, just going, holy smoke. Do you remember, I'm trying to think, maybe the first time you would have experienced this, like going to a monster truck show. And the first time those monster trucks really, they start up their engine, they really get after it, and they just let those motors rip. It's like a whole different level of, like, you've heard like engines and noise and Jake brakes from semis, but like the first time you hear a monster truck like take off to do a run in at the fairgrounds or in a stadium or whatever, it's like, whoa, like you can feel it in your body. It was like that. It reminded me of that, and just as far as the power of all these, these 30-some race cars all firing up at the same time, and it was kind of an interesting balance for me, because part of what I'm doing for Junior Motorsports is creating content for their social media. So on one hand, I wanted to just like put everything away and just soak it in, and let me just eat this up. But on the other hand, I had to, I've got a job to do, and I'm having to try to put together some content that'll work for them to send back so they can post, and then at the same time, create a YouTube episode out of this trip, more or less. So it was a lot. To me, I felt like it was a really well-oiled machine. People's opinion of how well-oiled NASCAR as an organization is kind of differs, I think, from one guy to the next when you're chatting with people around the racetrack. But as far as
let me ask a question right there. You say well-oiled depending on who you talk to.
Yeah.
My guess is everyone on the ground thinks it's an absolute disaster, and they all know how to do it all better.
Yeah, exactly.
Anytime I've ever been involved with anything that might be considered a big organization or been around it, everyone on the ground level is just always shaking their heads, saying what a dumpster fire thing seems to be.
Yeah, especially I think that's a great way to describe it. Especially if things are slow or delayed or whatever, then everyone's really getting antsy, going, "Oh, this isn't like, why is this such a hard thing? This shouldn't be so hard to run. Yeah, we just do this, do that. It would be smoother and easier and better." So you're spot on there.
Yeah, because it's funny. I mean, I don't know that this would be a reason why things wouldn't go smooth, but the person on the ground has probably no idea how working with the TV network, who's working with having certain ad times versus commentary times.
Right. Yeah, right.
I mean, there's so many levels to something like that to put on a show. I mean, a race that's going to be televised that involves so much stuff. It's really crazy that it actually even gets off the ground.
I know. See, and so there was that side of it that was interesting, and then to me, it's like everybody kind of knows what they're supposed to do. It's just kind of unwritten rules, and all these race teams have been doing this for so long. They all pull in, they all know where to get the cars, when to get the cars, and then even after the race is over, everything's packed up, and we're on the road within 2 hours of the race getting over. Like, we're on the road, being in the trucks, all the cars are on the move, and that's that. Which is just, here I am wanting to be helpful and like, hey, do you need? And everyone's just kind of like, nope. We do this every week. We all have our thing. We all have our spot. Probably best to just go stand over in the corner and just watch it happen. So more or less, that's kind of what I did. Just stay out of the way and don't get run over. It's kind of like a traveling circus. I mean, it's they come in every weekend to a new town. They set everything up. It's this whole giant. You have up to basically potentially 90 different little shops, little mechanic shops set up for all the different trucks and the Xfinity cars and the Cup cars. And it's just this huge moving city, basically this moving mechanic shop. and it was something. I think I'm hoping, I've got all this footage that I took. It'll be interesting to lay the footage out and kind of see. I'm hoping that I kind of captured some of it's a lot of it's just behind the scenes things that you don't see because a lot of fans don't get into the infield. They just stay in the stands. And you don't really see how all this goes down and just what all goes into it. But it was way beyond my expectations. I mean, Taylor told me it was going to be fun. He's like, you just wait. And it was way more than that. I mean, all these, just the cars and the speed and it's all this stuff you watched on TV. You've seen video clips and things of pit crews changing tires.
And when you say Taylor, Jackson's referencing Taylor Moyer, who we had on as a guest a couple times previously.
Yep.
He's the crew chief for the Xfinity series of Junior Motorsports. Jackson's buddy. So that's when Jackson says Taylor, that's who he's referencing. If anyone hadn't listened to those episodes.
Yeah. So and then as far as the race goes, it's an interesting dynamic because this causes some friction, I think, with our race fans. At least from what I perceive, the dynamic is weird because Junior Motorsports it's a racing company, and then instead of just having one race car, we have 4 cars, right? So technically we're teammates. These 4 cars all work. They're all part of the same company, but they all want independently to win. It's not like there's one puppet master that's up there telling which number car, like, hey, number 8, you can pass number 1, and number 9, you stay back. It's not like that. I think a lot of people think it is. So when we've had to kind of some interesting finishes this year so far with our cars, and I think a lot of fans are frustrated, saying, why can't you guys get your team together and race together a little more rather than. We've had some incidents where, well, like yesterday, our car got bumped by one of the other junior cars and spun us out, to put us clear to the back.
So hold on just a second. So
yeah.
Your Xfinity series, how many cars from Junior Motorsports are in the Xfinity series? 4?
Yeah, and that's all we race in. Just
okay.
Yeah, they've got 4 cars.
So there's four cars in this Xfinity series. So they're teammates because they're all under Junior Motorsports. Right. Now, when you say our car got bumped by one of the other team's car, one of the other guys on the team, does each car have its own crew chief?
Yeah. Yep. Each car has its own crew chief. It has its own entire crew. There's about 10, 12. Is that about right, Chris? 10, 12 basically support people for each car.
All right.
From the crew chief all the way down to the.
Okay. So I didn't.
Truck drivers.
I didn't realize that each car on the team had its own crew and chief. That probably.
Yeah. Yep.
So that almost sounds like teammates in name. Because how is there anything that brings camaraderie among the whole team when everyone has they're all in their own independent sphere, and they probably, the drivers probably, if they win versus the team winning, that bumps them up because that puts them probably in a position to progress up to a higher level of racing, I would guess.
Right, exactly. So that's why it's kind of, especially in Xfinity, because it's. So I've read that it's described sometimes as sort of a developmental, sector for cup racers. So yeah, each individual guy in these different cars is out, obviously, and as they should be. They're out there for themselves because they like, hey, this is my shot to develop, do well, and hopefully get picked up by a cup team, which would be every driver's ultimate goal. And so. I totally understand. You need to race for yourself, and you need to do what you need to do to further your career. And there's not like a team. It's not like Junior Motorsports racing team won this year.
Mm-hmm.
They have individual races, and then they have points for the racers. But it's not like we all 4 cars as a team share a trophy together and all hang around. Is that correct, Chris? Right?
This would.
So it's really not.
As I'm thinking why the benefit of the team Why? Let me say this. If I was a racer, why would I be encouraged if my teammates were winning and I wasn't? The
Right.
This might be a question for you to ask Taylor, but I would have to say the only reason you would want your team to be successful is because if the team is successful, that means there's probably more sponsorship money available, which will benefit you individually to have access to more technology, more whatever. Would
Yeah.
would that be the only reason you? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Because as a team, if you have a strong team, across the board, hey, Junior Motorsports has these 4 great race teams. You're gonna get drivers interested in racing for Junior Motorsports, and then Junior Motorsports would say, okay, we're gonna put you in this car, that car. But yeah, as a team, if you're strong, it's on the sponsor side. I would say yes, and on the acquiring new talent,
Yeah.
same thing. Like it's kind of like college football. It's like, hey, who wouldn't want to go play for Nick Saban or whatever in Alabama, right? They might not be winning necessarily that year, but just as a whole, like this place is going to make me successful as an athlete, and I'd be crazy not to go, play for this coach, so to speak.
So with what because you're kind of hooked up with Taylor, what
Yeah.
what car is the Junior Motorsports car that you guys
So
kind of?
we're the number 8 car. Josh Berry is our driver. Josh is really good. In fact, something unique about Josh right now is that he's driving the number 9 car, which is a Napa car for Hendrick Motorsports. Their driver, Chase Elliott, who's like the most famous NASCAR driver, broke his leg snowboarding last week, and they hit up our driver Josh Berry to fill in for him. So Josh is running 2 races weekend now. He runs Saturdays, in his full-time car of ours, and then on Sundays he's jumping in that Hendrick Motorsports number 9 in place of Chase Elliott.
And that's in the Cup, not the Xfinity.
That's in Cup, yeah.
Ooh.
That's in Cup. So huge opportunity for him. And we're all pulling for him, hoping that you want him to do well and make the most of his opportunity. But if he does, it likely means he'll get gobbled up by somebody. If they go, oh, Josh filled in last year and did great, we should try to snag him for a Cup car this year. But again, ultimately, you want him to individually to do the best he can. So
now, as far as the semi that you're driving that's hauling the race cars, are you hauling the number 8 car?
Yeah, they keep even the truck crews. It's all because our trailer is basically the mobile mechanic shop. So we carry the 2 race cars. You have a primary car and a backup car.
Okay.
Both number 8s. They're identical cars. And just you have one that you use your primary race car, and the other one you would use as a backup. If, say, for example, you wrecked your primary car in qualifying, you would have to pull out your backup car and try to get it race ready. So yeah, we're all, I would say, the most team of all, at least based on my very limited experience, the most Junior Motorsports camaraderie would be between all the truck drivers. I mean, everybody likes each other across the teams, like everyone gets along, but the truckers, we all kind of feel like, we're all traveling together. We feel pretty together, it seems like, from my limited little experience.
Well, as it should. Truckers need to stick together.
Yeah, exactly. You're right.
Yep.
So it's been fun, but so kind of back to the race of yesterday. Those were good questions. I'm glad you asked about all that stuff. So we had one of our other cars. We were really storming and making a move, and one of our own Junior Motorsports cars decided to make a run and just bumped into the back of us and spun us out. So our number 8, of course, spun out. Luckily, somehow we didn't get wrecked. We just spun out. Nobody hit us, and you fall to the back of the pack, and you got to start working your way up. And Josh is a stud. He's definitely a top hand in the Xfinity. So he makes his way back up to the front pretty quick. But it got late enough in the race. Anyway, we just didn't quite. We'll finish top 10. I think we got P8 yesterday, position 8, and which is good. Anytime you can finish top 10, that's a big success to be consistently in the top 10. So, but again, now transitioning to, you read online a little bit, some of the Instagram, Twitter stuff, comments and things from people. They're really frustrated, going like, why don't you guys race as a team? Like, why is one guy hitting one of your own teammates in the back like that and spinning them out? I don't think he necessarily meant to, but it's like, well,
I don't understand how that happens. I mean, I can go, 20 or 30 miles per hour and get pretty close to another vehicle and not hit them. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how.
180.
I don't know.
Why,
I don't know how these guys. Have trouble not, doing something like that.
That it is crazy. It is crazy to see in real life bumping and knowing these cars they're doing anywhere from, in the corners maybe 150 up to 185, in the straight, and they are just touching and rubbing, and it's just crazy because they're just like this flash that goes by.
Well, I have I wanted a couple things I want to talk about on this some more. One, I just want to, if for anyone that might not be up to date on what you're doing or is a little bit confused, I am going to give you my take on what you have going on right now, and you can correct me. So these NASCAR junior motorsports, most people have heard of Dale Earnhardt Jr., probably one of the most famous NASCAR racers of all time, arguably.
Yep.
He has a racing team. Which why don't you explain what a racing team means actually?
Yeah, they basically just a company of cars, and they go and they, NASCAR puts on races every weekend. They're members of NASCAR and entered in all these NASCAR races, and they race.
Okay, so they have cars in the races. Now, I didn't really fully understand this, that they have different levels to NASCAR. And I'm gonna describe this as Major League Baseball. I think that's the easiest way. Is you have the major league teams, Atlanta Braves, Los Angeles Dodgers, New York Yankees, and underneath those they have what they call their farm teams, from way down to just under the major leagues, where you hear it called AAA. A lot of times you hear of maybe a pitcher that has been injured, and as he's coming back, they send him down to AAA for a little while just to get back in the swing of things. So NASCAR has the Cup, which will be comparable to the major leagues in baseball, and then they have Xfinity Series, which is like that AAA team, just under the major leagues. So they during the race season they have races. Do they have them every weekend?
Yeah, from February till November.
Okay, so every weekend.
They have a week or two off here and there, but
so
more
or less every weekend there is a NASCAR race, and the race cars have to travel to these races. They're based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, so that when you have a race that's in Phoenix, in California, those cars have to be transported all the way, across the country. We've talked about logbooks. Drivers can only drive so long before they're not allowed to drive anymore. So these semis that haul the cars have two drivers in them, so they can pretty much drive nonstop. They take shifts driving to account for the logbook rules. So Jackson has been brought in as one of the truck drivers for Junior Motorsports to take cars that are in the Xfinity Series from Charlotte out to the West Coast in this case. So a couple weeks ago, he flew out to Charlotte, helped drive out to California, and then there was a couple races on the West Coast where Jackson went back to Montana and carried on with his normal life. And then when that West Coast swing was over, Jackson flew down to Phoenix and now is helping drive these cars back to North Carolina. as part of that process, on some of the race days, he is doing kind of some behind the scenes truck driver perspective for Junior Motorsports social media. And so he's driving truck and doing a little bit of social media. Does that kind of sum up what's happening?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's a pretty good synopsis. One thing that kind of is unique about it is that I think every single place we go, we travel with the Cup Series. So, the analogy you make is pretty accurate, where you have people getting called up and sent down. They switch players back and forth all the time.
But all the races, they have a Cup and Xfinity at every race.
Yeah. So
kind of like
about half of them they have truck races at as well.
So you could maybe equate that to
show.
like a high school sports where you have your varsity and junior varsity team. You're going to have a lot of times 2 basketball games on the same night, same gym. Essentially, these race weekends, you're going to have the Xfinity and the Cup races all together. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you guys?
Yeah, and it's
similar. Oh, go ahead.
It's similar to some of these. If you remember, some of the funnest basketball you ever played was playing JV. Maybe you never played JV, but even football, some of the funnest stuff you did was JV because it's less refined. I remember JV football games were so fun because it was just kind of like, you know what, we just kind of roll with it. And it's very similar. A lot of people would say that Xfinity. I would say Xfinity has a lot larger following than, as far as like than AAA baseball would, but a lot of people enjoy Xfinity a little more because, people, they're a little more scrappy. They're fighting for what they got. They know that there's, for every car, there's three drivers that are just waiting to jump in that seat, if they wash out. So it's just a little more, I don't know what the word is, down home, I guess, maybe, whereas the Cup is probably a little more of that drive to survive feel. Formula One, pretty succinct, very to where I think some of the people that have worked both as far as, mechanics and truckers and whatnot kind of prefer Xfinity because it's just a little more relaxed.
I gotcha.
So that makes sense.
So on the Cup Series, how many cars does Junior Motorsports have going?
None. We don't race in the Cup at all.
Oh, Junior Motorsports is not in the Cup. Okay.
No, we're just 100% Xfinity, and it's tricky. The Cup deal's tricky. I don't know how many years you get your license for in Cup, but I think last article that I read, it's up to like $20 or $22 million to get, I think it's called a charter, to be able to race in the Cup Series. And I don't know, I apologize, I don't know if that's annual or if it's every couple of years that has to be paid, but to race Cup too, it's just even the sponsorship game. Again, you go to Xfinity, sponsorship is nice. You get a lot more of these, like our sponsor yesterday, for example, Jarrett, the hat that I'm wearing today. This great family out of Ohio, and they're just really down home. It's like a family company that's sponsoring us, and got to meet the Jarrett family. They were great. Whereas in Cup, you're going to find a lot more corporate type sponsor stuff that you just don't get that good old down home, and it's just on every level, whether it's sponsors or crew, the whole atmosphere. It's just a very different feel.
So this makes. So when you're talking about Josh Berry, who was up with Hendricks Motorsports driving for them, I was thinking, oh, he does good. He's going to just pop up into the Junior Motorsports car at Cup. But now I see why you want your drivers to do real well so they can progress. But you also was like, well, maybe not so well. So you stay with us.
Yeah. Once they go up, you're like, well.
Okay. Interesting.
For a year anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
It's quite, and I've got a lot to learn. Of course, I'm not by no means. If you're out there listening and you're a NASCAR aficionado, I am by no means a wizard. I have a lot to learn, but
I don't know.
it's going to be a fun
You've
year
done
for it.
you've done one race day. That I would expect you got it all down. One race day.
As a NASCAR hauler driver.
Yep. Oh, I think as long as you don't turn one of those tires loose out onto the track during the race, you're probably going to be good.
Oh man.
So that Drive to Survive on Netflix, which is about Formula One. I watched
Yep.
one season of that, and I kind of I thought it was very well done. I really liked it.
Yeah.
And I have found that I can't believe how much I keep an eye on Formula One racing now, just from watching, a couple episodes of that. I will say that NASCAR racing has a little bit of a stereotype of maybe not being the most exciting thing to watch. But once you start to learn the people behind it, totally changes it. And I'll give you an example. Is like Rooster now. Almost every Saturday, he's calling me to ask me if I'm watching the NASCAR race.
Really?
So, Dad, I don't think I've ever watched more than 30 seconds as I was flipping through the channels and someone asked me a question when I happened to be on the NASCAR race and I paused. And no, he's like planning out his Saturdays so he can watch the races, which no matter what he says, in a million years would he never have done that until he started to have some personal investment in
Well, you have a little connection, yeah, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh.
So, we may even actually need to have Junior Motorsports sponsor our podcast because I have a feeling we're going to be talking about the number 8 car a little more. And as people hear more about Josh Berry and learn about this team, they're going to get a little bit of personal connection to it. And next thing you know,
Yeah.
there's going to be a little more eyes coming to that Junior Motorsport department.
That's good.
I say that jokingly, but in the reality, it is interesting how those kind of sports which on the surface might not be the most exciting thing. As soon as you start to have, you start to know some of the personal stories of this and some of the, the team and whatnot, you do start to pay attention to a little more and keep an eye on it. And I'd be willing to bet we do have listeners that will, keep a little bit of an eye on that number 8 car in the Xfinity series, just because of your connection to it.
Yeah. And we are, I'm not just hyping Josh Berry and the number 8 because he's our guy. I mean, if we had some terrible driver, I'd probably still hype him. But in seriousness, like, we have such a great car and like our crew is we're so good. We've just had so many tough breaks. We've had like the most bizarre things that have just set us back where, I mean, we could just have easily, been in top 3 in all of these races that we've been in. I think is this our 4th race? I think this is our 4th. Anyway, we're just right there. So we're just on the cusp of doing something really great here. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out, you guys check out the number 8 Saturdays. It's usually on FS1 out there on the old tube. So
hey, I got it.
And you might even catch a glimpse of Battle Axe Jack's out there in the pit.
What Battle Axe Jacks is that? Where did that come from?
I just came out of my mouth there while I was talking to you.
So
it's like a
self nickname?
Yeah.
Like a self call sign? Interesting. Are you gonna? Yeah, you got a lot of miles to convince Chris to kind of adopt that.
I had an old trucker one time that I trucked with, one of my first truck driving jobs, and he goes, they call me Maverick. And I said, he's a unique individual. And he goes, they call me Maverick, and I was like, I never could ask him, but I want to say, who's they? What do you, like someone named you this? I get the feeling you named yourself this. And anyway, Battle Axe Jacks, but just definitely that's me, and I'll own that from day one. I just made that up.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, self-identified nicknames. Well, whatever. I'm not even gonna go down there.
Whatever. Roll.
All right. One last question here on if you can answer this. So number 8 car spun out by a teammate this last weekend. Does that cause a little tension amongst the team in the air?
So
So I you know
so
if you're I know if it was a different team spun you out, there's probably some choice words being said. You can kind of cuss out that other team and be upset and frustrated. But if it's the teammate, is there just a lot of I mean, is it a tense air where things want to be said and they can't because your teammates, or how does that? Did you notice anything, or how does that all shake out?
this wasn't too bad. A lot of people would just chalk this up and say, that's racing. You hear that a lot. That's racing. That's racing. At Daytona, if any of you guys watched Daytona, we had quite a deal. We basically pretty much had a wreck where the whole team got tangled up in a wreck together, more or less, and everyone pretty much wrecked everyone. And Daytona's the first race out the gate. So that's kind of what got everyone started on, like, you guys, race as a team, because we just started out that way. But I think I find that I'm way more indignant than everybody else. Like, that happens, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me! That's our own, and I'm getting all pumped up, and everyone's like, well, now roll on to next weekend. That's racing, and I'm like, oh yeah, because you have like 30 some races or whatever. It's like, in my mind, I'm like, no, this was our shot. This was our one. This was it. And everyone's like, no, we got a lot to go. So anyway.
Well, right on, man. Well, we are getting out of time. I had a goat have babies the morning of that huge storm that came through. Of course.
Ooh.
So had her in the barn. I saw it was coming, but we got pretty chilly at night, so I brought those babies in the house and just have them a little area in the house. And I'm just out there milking her, to get that colostrum going. And I took one of them out this morning when I went to do all my chores to put in with her, just to get some time in with her. And she had actually had a small little triplet that was dead that I didn't know she had another one in there. She looked big, and there's a thing with goats. If you think they got a retained baby in there, you can kind of put your hands under their belly in a certain spot and lift them and shake them, and you can feel that baby in there. And she still looked big, but I couldn't feel anything in there. So I thought, that must be it. And so today I went out, and she had actually pushed out that other one, a real small one. And she wanted nothing to do with these two now. Like, won't even let me come close to her. So,
oh no.
So we are going to be bottle feeding.
Just what you needed.
This one I needed.
Twin goats and twin kids.
So, she's our dairy goat. We like to milk her for goat dairy products.
So it doesn't hurt anything other than adding to your daily chore load.
Yeah, and when you do those goats, you got to pull those babies off, to really milk those goats well. So that's what a lot of people with dairy goats do anyway. But I just wasn't quite ready to commit to daily bottle feeding and milking. But I'm committed.
Here you are.
So that's what I'm just about to head out the door to go milk this goat and then come feed babies that are in our house.
Just baby central.
Baby central. It's gonna warm up tomorrow though, so those guys are headed out of doors tomorrow.
Oh, that'll be nice.
But they will be anyone that doesn't know goats that have been bottle fed by humans from the day they were born. If you thought you could get your dog tame, man, you can make an annoying, irritating, but endearing goat at the same time.
Yeah, no joke.
So we'll have two of them.
Well, that'll be fun.
Well, anything else from you, Jay?
No, I think that's about it. We're gonna wrap this trip up. We should hit Charlotte first thing in the morning, and then I gotta bum a ride to the airport and fly it back home, I guess, and get back to work.
Well, all right. Well, you guys drive well. out there. And anyone that needs to get a hold of us, steady at the wheel podcast at gmail.com is the best way. Steady at the wheel podcast on Instagram. And for sure, YouTube. We got the podcast on YouTube. We're a couple episodes behind on YouTube from catching up to where the audio version is, but we're working to get those up, released pretty close to the same. But we'd really appreciate if you go on there to YouTube and subscribe on that channel. That helps us out. And if nothing else, man, drive well.
You bet. Sounds good.
Okay, bye.